Okay, so does Daniel 9 indicate that the Messiah should have already come? Certainly he does. Let's have a look in this prophecy and see what we can learn from it, rather than what the rabbis learn from it. First of all, we have to ask the question, when does the time frame of these 70 weeks of years begin? And there are possibilities to this. According to Daniel 9:25, from the going forth of the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. So that's the starting point. There are three possibilities for this. One is Ezra chapter 1, verse 1, which is the decree of Cyrus to build a house in Jerusalem, which took place in roughly 536 BC. Ezra chapter 6, verse 8, where Darius makes a decree to allow the continuation of the work of the temple in 520 BC. Or the third one, Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 8, which describes the decree to rebuild the walls of the city. Now, there's a man called Sir Robert Anderson, who I'm going to refer to quite a bit now, who wrote a book called The Coming Prince. Sir Robert Anderson is an interesting character. He's not still alive, but he was actually in the Metropolitan Police, believe it or not. But he was not just in the Metropolitan Police, he was the second Assistant Commissioner of the Met in 1888 to 1901. So he was a high-ranking policeman, good at doing detective work. He was also a theologian. His father was an elder in the Presbyterian Church of Ireland. He was born in Dublin. He was born again in the Irish Evangelical Revival in 1859. And he was close to a number of well-known figures in the 19th century, Horatius Bonar, J.N. Darby, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. All of those people knew and had respect for Sir Robert Anderson. And he wrote this book looking at the subject of the 70 weeks of years prophecy. And he said that the most likely date for the beginning of it is actually the third one I've mentioned in Nehemiah. In the book of Nehemiah, chapter 2, you'll find it actually gives you a specific date, which the others don't do. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. Now, just to give you a bit of background as well, one of the problems we have with ancient history is that we don't have any universal dates. Okay? Everyone knows that the First World War started in 1914 and ended in 1918. There's no disputing that, whether you are an atheist, a Christian, a Muslim, or whatever, because we have a universal date which fixes that date. When you look at ancient history, you don't have that. You have to go by the starting date of kings. So it's much more difficult to actually fix the dates. And in the Hebrew calendar, of course, you do have often the months given, and this one actually gives you the month, in the month of Nisan. And of course, Nisan has nothing to do with Japanese cars. It is the month which happens around the time of Passover. In fact, it is the month of the Passover, round about our time of April. So it tells you not just the date, but also the month. And Robert Anderson, now you have to take his word for this, and I have to say that some people do dispute these dates, but I find them very interesting and worth considering. He puts this date as 445 BC. At this time, the street and the wall were rebuilt in troublesome times, which is what the prophecy says. Look in the book of Nehemiah, that's what it's all about, rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. And we actually have some interesting historical material about this. At this time, the Persian Empire, which was still ruling over Jerusalem, had actually suffered a defeat at the hands of the Greeks. And this was about this time. Just read from a Jewish history. At this time, Persia suffered a defeat at the hands of the Greeks in a sea battle. The great king was obliged to submit to a humiliating peace, among the articles of which were the abandonment of maritime towns and a stipulation that the Persian army should not approach within 3 days' journey of the sea. Jerusalem, being about this distance from the coast and standing so near the line of communication with Egypt, became a place of utmost importance. That's from Millman, History of the Jews. The rebuilding of the walls meant a measure of self-government for the Jewish people in Jerusalem, and therefore is the most likely start date for the 70 weeks of years prophecy. History also confirms that at this time, events were taking place which made this a significant time.